Krampus. Krampus survives because winter needs a consequence, and the clearest canon line here is Alpine Krampusnacht, where horns, bells, and birch sticks turn streets into a chilly tribunal. The claim is simple and unnerving. This figure is not evil for chaos. He is a seasonal auditor who checks behavior when days are shortest. The stakes are blunt. In stories, he punishes the cruel and the lazy, and in parades he chases anyone who pretends rules are only for the warm months. Krampus works by contrast. Saintly gifts arrive with one hand while the other hand rattles chains, and that split makes the lesson land harder than a sermon. The mechanics are theatrical. Goat horns, a long tongue, soot-black fur, a basket for carrying off the worst cases, and bells that say, "Do not run, face what you did." Some push back, arguing the parades are modern spectacle and the old terror is exaggerated. The counter is that the ritual still preserves the engine, the public memory of consequences. Compared to faceless holiday fear, Krampus has a job description and a deadline, which makes him sharper than generic monsters. Impact. He binds celebration to responsibility, so the gifts do not rot into entitlement. Verdict. If winter is a test, Krampus is the proctor who shows his work. Grýla. Grýla is the mountain that walks and the mother that judges, rooted in Icelandic tales where she listens for whining and laziness when food is scarce. The anchor detail is that she is already an adult in older poems, not a child turned sour, which makes her less a villain and more a pressure made into a person. The stakes are survival math. In a hard winter, a house cannot carry dead weight, and so stories put teeth on that truth. Her craft is listening and collecting. Grýla hears towns from a distance, chooses the worst habits, and turns them into dinner in legends that are more warning than recipe. The pushback is that the extremes are too harsh for modern ears. The answer is that old stories carried sharp edges because the cold did not negotiate. Nearest neighbors, like simple witches, fail to explain why a whole island repeats her name. Grýla is not a spellcaster first. She is scarcity wearing a shawl. Impact. She keeps the season from being only sugar, reminding families to tighten lines and help each other work. But if Krampus is the proctor, Grýla is the principal who signs off on the winter ledger. Yule Lads. The Yule Lads begin as troublemakers and drift toward charm, a timeline you can track from potato thieves to candy givers as centuries soften. The concrete detail is their roster of names tied to specific pranks: door slammer, spoon licker, candle stealer, each with a night to visit. The stakes are behavioral training for kids who must guard food, fire, and sleep in the darkest stretch of the year. Their mechanic is serial mischief with a schedule. One arrives each night, leaves a small gift or a small scare depending on the child, then lines up with his brothers like a countdown to relief. Critics say the modern gifts blur the edge that made the tales work. The reply: the schedule is the engine, not the sugar, and it still teaches pattern and patience. Compared to one big monster, the lads split winter into manageable worries you can name, which kids learn faster than abstract rules. Impact. They turn December into a training ground for attention, because the house must be watched and chores must be real. Verdict. A prank on a calendar is a lesson wrapped as a laugh. Yule Cat. The Yule Cat is hunger-shaped like fur, and the canon hook is its rule: wear new warm clothes by winter's feast, or risk being noticed by the eyes in the snow. That detail is not fashion. It is proof that your family worked, your neighbors knit, and nobody let you freeze. The stakes are communal. If the cat eats those who were not given clothes, the cat is a test of generosity, not style. The mechanic is visibility. New clothes are a flag that says this house held together, this child is not forgotten. If you lack that flag, someone failed you, or worse, you failed to help someone else. Pushback claims the cat is a scare tactic for textile labor. The cleaner read is that the story makes warm clothing sacred because warmth saves lives. Near neighbors like ghost dogs lack this social contract. The Yule Cat is a weather report with claws. Impact. It quietly commands communities to cover each other against the cold. Button. If you want to beat the beast, you do it with wool and kindness. Lwyd. Lwyd is a skull horse that sings at your door and asks to come in, a Welsh riddle where death knocks but speaks in poetry. The anchor is the door-to-door verse duel, a ritual that turns dread into music and makes households prove they can answer the dark with wit. The stakes are pride and hospitality. If you win the verse, you grant entry and share food, and the skull becomes a guest, not a thief. Mari's craft is inversion. She looks like an omen and acts like a neighbor, and in that twist the village practices turning fear into a party. Some accuse modern versions of theme night cosplay. The counter is that the core mechanic survives. Communal skill against winter's silence. Compared to mute specters, Mari teaches you to speak back, which is a survival muscle when nights stretch. Impact. She ties language to warmth and turns the doorway into a stage where courage can be small and real. Verdict. If a skull can be welcomed, so can the next hard night. Perchta. Perchta walks the Alpine valleys as a winter judge who praises industry and hates waste, and the canon detail that matters is her dual aspect. Bright leader of the 12th night processions and dark cutter of cheats, the stakes are household economics, spinning done, food stored, promises kept, or else. This is not cruelty for its own sake, it is a ledger spoken out loud. Her mechanic is audit by ritual. Perchta runs sweep through villages with masks that show faces of frost, and the procession itself becomes the warning label for idleness and theft. Pushback says the gutting imagery is overblown, the clear reply, and even the playful versions keep the blade in the story, because the message loses force if it is only a parade. Neighbors like gentle snow queens cannot enforce hard rules. Perchta can, which is why she endures. Impact. She defends the value of unseen work that keeps people living when crops sleep. Button. If winter is a contract, Perchta is the clause that says you must sign in good faith. Switches. Switches are the props that make the talk real. Birch twigs bound into a bundle, raised with more noise than force in public runs. The concrete detail is that birch is flexible and stingy, a teacher's tool that marks shame more than flesh. The stakes are corrective memory. A light sting today saves a broken bone later when you ignore rules near ice or fire. The mechanic is a theater of consequence. In Krampus processions, the switches are shown, swished, and rarely land hard, because the lesson works at the distance between threat and mercy. Some argue this is fear-mongering. The better read is that children remember what the crowd remembers, and a switch you can see is safer than a punishment you imagine. Near neighbors like invisible curses fail because they teach nothing you can plan for. Impact. Switches translate winter's hard no into an image a child can outgrow. Verdict. The tool is the story, not the bruise. Chains. Chains make the noise that holds the street's attention, and the symbol that ties chaotic forces to a rule. The canon image is Krampus dragging or wearing irons that clank on cobbles, an audible line between the wild and the permitted. The stakes are boundary setting. The monster is scary but leashed. The danger is real but managed by the village, and that is a powerful signal to kids and to anxious adults. Chains work as a moving perimeter. They create space where performers can chase without causing panic, and they teach that even terror answers to law when the community stands together. Some say the chains glamorize hurt. Place the ethics line right here. Do not glamorize harm. Focus on craft, logic, and psychology. The point is not the pain. It is the restraint. Compared to a free-roaming beast, a chained hunter says people can organize fear into ritual and walk home safer. Impact. The sound becomes a metronome that tells the crowd when to laugh, when to dodge, and when to applaud the end. Verdict. The chain is proof that monsters can be managed when a town agrees on rules. A boy in Tyrol watches sparklers die as bells approach, and his grandfather squeezes his shoulder once, not to scare him but to say, "We see you, stand here." A teenager in Reykjavik folds a new scarf around a shy cousin and jokes about the cat, and both pretend the joke is enough while making sure the scarf is tight. Here is the final reframing. Winter folklore does not survive because it is cruel. It survives because it stitches warning to warmth so tightly that the seam looks like a story. Krampus reminds markets to be honest. Grýla reminds families to carry each other. The Yule Lads pace the days so kids can count to safety. The Yule Cat deputizes knitters as heroes. Lwyd proves that a skull can be a guest if a door is brave. Perchta writes receipts in the air where everyone can read them. Switches make memory without breaking anyone. Chains ring out a contract between fear and order. If that is true, then the real monster is forgetting why these figures were invited outside in the first place. Keep the rules and keep the music. Keep the fire and share the bread. Let the hunters hunt the worst parts of us, while the best parts stand together under cold stars.